Next is the first reading approval of the general fund budget for 2015-2016.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have a few comments I'd like to make before Mr. Richardson comes in with the details. With regard to our general fund budget development for 2015-2016, I would begin with this word, extraordinary. I don't think there's any question that Lexington Richland 5 is an extraordinary school district. We are extraordinary. By performance, we know that there are many indicators that will verify that. I'll just mention some of the highlights. We've had an A on our federal report card every year since its inception 3 years ago. We've had an excellent on the absolute rating of the state report card for the last 5 years and for 11 of the 14 years since it was initiated. Our SAT scores are above the national average every year on record since 1988. That's as far as our records go back, with the highest percentage of our students tested of any district in the state. Our ACT scores are above the national average for the last 17 years as well, with the highest percentage of our students tested in South Carolina. We have numerous individual and team awards for students in career and technology education. Superior ratings for our arts programs, including the current state 3A band championship. Excellent record of success in athletics, including current state championships in 4A cheerleading, 3A cheerleading, and 4A girls tennis. And we have a broad representation of students involved in meaningful civic engagement and community service activities. Those are just a few. So why are we able to get these results? Why does that happen? Well, I think we get extraordinary results for several reasons. Included among those are we have favorable teacher-student ratios, something that this board has adhered to without exception for many, many years. We have competitive salaries and benefits for all of our employees. We have a broad range of programs, as we just said, not only in academics, but the athletics, the arts, extracurricular activities. We have appropriate, rigorous professional development for our staff. We have an excellent physical setting, particularly thanks to your work with the 2008 bond referendum and all the projects that have taken place as a result of that. We have a safe, secure environment thanks to many things, including your support for providing a school resource officer for every school in our district. We have adequate support services across the board, including nurses, social workers, technology, certainly not just limited to that. But I think all of those things are factors in the reason that our school system is extraordinary. When Advanced Ed was here for our recent reaccreditation visit, they pointed out powerful practices. Now, they didn't have to point out any, but they pointed out 3 that they think are worthy of replication not only in our own country, but internationally. They're an international organization. And the 3 things that they pointed out was our success in attracting, recruiting, and retaining high-quality professionals. They also talked about a rigorous, continuous program of professional learning, which is extraordinary. And thirdly, they talked about the unique partnerships that this board has established with parents and other community stakeholders. All of these things, I think, contribute to the fact that we are an extraordinary school district. Well, we know that we've hit some tough times, and we've been working with our staff for a full year now, looking at the fact that we have some issues that we have to face. And one of the students you honored tonight, in fact, the young lady from Dutch Fork Middle who was not here, she let me borrow her picture, which you see on the screen, but she was illustrating the concept of scarcity. And the bottom line is we have certainly very, very unlimited expectations in our community, but we have limited resources. So we have to figure a way to make everything balance. As we've been working on this for the past year, and I have met with our administrators, our teachers, our support staff to talk about the fact that we have to be more frugal and have to make some difficult decisions, more so than ever before. I have shared with them that from my perspective and our administration's perspective, as we've worked on this, we've had two goals that we've kept in mind. One is that, goal one, everyone who is currently employed in the district and is in good standing will have a job next year. We've said there will be no raise, but if you're in good standing, you'll have a job. And secondly, barring any unusual circumstances, we've said that employees can expect to get paid as much next year as they got paid this year. And I think that's been one of the reasons that our staff has worked with us to try, while I think that they have been very understanding about the challenges that we face because they believe in our commitment to our approximately 2,500 employees. Now, there are many challenges that we face to achieving these goals. Among them are these: the changing funding formula at the state level, inadequate funding from the state, that's something we could talk about all evening, and thirdly, Act 388. Act 388, not my favorite legislative act of all time, and it's fairly recent. And when this quote actually came to mind when we honored our students for their work in economics last week. I serve on the board of South Carolina Economics, and a number of our students were recognized, like Gabby, for their understanding of economics. I was reminded of this quote of Albert Einstein: "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." Now, I don't profess to be an Albert Einstein or project what he might say, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I would say this: I think if he were around today, he might say, Act 388 is the ninth wonder of the world. Those who understand it strive to stave off its impact. Those who don't experience its ever-compounding negative consequences. And that's what we're experiencing here in our district: the ever-compounding negative consequences of Act 388. So my fear is this: we have an extraordinary system. We face huge challenges. But if we don't rise up to the challenges before us, and we have to make some really severe change in our operation in terms of how we work, my fear is that we will become an ordinary district. We will no longer be extraordinary. So at this time, Mr. Richardson will walk you through where we are, and I assure you that our quest to remain extraordinary continues, but our challenges have never been greater that I can recall than we face right now. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Dr. Hefner. I think. I'd like to request that the chorus come back up and hum for us while we're going through this. Here Comes the Sun. Before I get started, I want to say that, the Senate has finished this budget process probably as early in the years I've ever seen it happen since I've been in this business. I did not keep track of what happened today, but the House now has it in their court. I'm not sure where they stand with it now, but I would suggest to you that we'll probably end up with a conference committee version before it's all said and done. Okay. It is. Okay. I'm an analog kind of guy in a technology world. All right, this is my usual disclaimers. Yeah, I got it. Everything you see here is based on the Senate Finance Committee version of the budget. The state budget projections are still based on our 45-day enrollment. They have not been updated with Senate numbers, nor have they been updated with 135-day numbers as of yet. Of course, everything's subject to change based upon whatever happens with the General Assembly. The current year appropriated base student cost is $2,120. It is currently funded at $2,109, and my understanding is after the 135th day, we're probably going to be close to $2,100. Our 45-day average daily membership is 16,420. Our weighted pupils are 21,851. Projected base student cost for next year is $2,220. I've given you this quote before, but this is the reason why we're all here. Here's some of the budget considerations. You'll notice that our bottom line has changed since our last meeting, where our budget currently is standing at a 2.7% overall increase. And the reason why we've been able to reduce that is due to the fact that Richland County Sheriff's Department has received a grant to fund the SRO at Chapin Middle School, so we were able to reduce the request by $150,000, cut it in half, basically. We've lost the K-5 lottery funding of $385,000. We've used some non-recurring funds in the current budget that we will not be able to replace, and that's an impact on our general fund budget going into next year. We've got some increased utility costs anticipated for rates going up in the new middle school. One thing I showed you last time was that we had taken some technology license agreements out of the capital budget due to the fact that we're a little bit unbalanced right now. We have taken that back out of the general fund and moved it back to capital, less to the tune of $578,000. We're looking at 11 FTEs, additional FTEs for Chapin Intermediate, Chapin Middle School. That's down from 12 during the last budget hearing. Spring Hill High School, we're looking for an additional 2 FTEs, and I think that's down 0.5 from the last time we spoke. We've reduced all travel, food, and membership budgets in the general fund to the tune of $147,581. And of course, all of our salary increases, fringe benefit increases, and another thing that we've done is frozen all of our extracurricular and co-curricular supplements at the current fiscal year levels. All that adds up to the budget increase of $4.4 million. Here's some things that we're doing. I've mentioned some of these, and I've got a couple new ones in here that we're looking at to help control our cost. One, obviously, is our new integrated fund accounting and HR system. We've contracted with an outside staffing agency to provide additional teacher substitutes, I'm still having problems speaking. We're also looking at ways that we can maximize potential rebates by use of the P card and some online electronic payments. We're doing the energy audits and implementing some other energy saving measures to hopefully save us some funds, and we've also sent out procedures on how schools should shut down for weekends and holidays. We have done a in-depth analysis of district staffing requirements to make all the school staffing consistent across the district and hopefully minimize the need for additional positions. We have implemented new procedures defining expectations for employees who receive salary supplements for extracurricular and co-curricular or co-curricular activities. This is new. We've frozen all of our extracurricular and co-curricular salary supplements at the current year levels. We've implemented new procedures for separating supplemental agreements from teacher contracts. We've reduced all the travel, food, and membership budgets, and that will be for every fund, by the way. The amount I showed you earlier was for the general fund only. That's new, something new that you didn't see last time. We've incorporated some energy-efficient LED lighting at the new middle school, and hopefully that'll minimize some electricity and labor costs going forward. We're planning for future replacement of all of our lighting throughout the district. And we're looking at alternatives to reduce some of our contracted service costs, something as simple as, maintaining consistent temperatures in our schools, to, maybe cutting our grass at different intervals than we currently do to hopefully save some money going forward. This is just a picture of all of our local revenue. It has changed a little bit since we met last time, based on some more current numbers that I have, but I feel like that this is probably not going to change going forward. But local revenue obviously totaling $59,583,000. This has not changed much since we last met, due to the fact that we haven't had any really updated revenue projections from the state. I expect those any day now, as a matter of fact. And hopefully they will be somewhat improved from what you're looking at here, but not significantly improved. And of course, just our transfers from other funds, for a total revenue picture of $162,843,137. This is just a graph showing you the breakdown of how all that works. And this just shows you our, local, state, and other revenue percentages. Here's our projected general fund expenditures. This has changed as well due to some of the things that I talked about earlier. But our salaries and friends still make up approximately 89 to 90% of our budget. Our contracted services are 6.22%, and supplies and materials approximately 5%, and all the other and transfers and all those kind of things are still less than 1%, for total expenditures of $167,772,453. This just shows you how those are broken down. I talked about most of these last time, but I did want to just show you as a reminder. I won't get into a whole lot of detail, but as a reminder of what's going on. All these funds are either decreasing or staying the same, but we still have some mandates that we have to do. The net effect of that is we can expect about a $1.8 million increase in our state funding as it currently stands. And of course, our expenditures are expected to go up more than that, just based on our mandated increases in the steps and our fringe benefit increases, steps for our employees and fringe benefit increases for our employees. So obviously there's a problem with math. We've got revenue increasing by $1.8 million, and our costs just from those two items going up $2.5 million. So obviously our funding's not keeping pace with some of the state requirements. This is a new graph that I just kind of wants to illustrate what's going on. And you can see right there at the end where our expenditures continue to rise, but our revenue's leveling. I fear that's going to be a problem going forward if we're not able to get a handle on what's going on. This is a calculation for our allowable millage increase under Section 6-1-230 of the South Carolina Code of Laws, also known as Act 388. Based upon the information we received, our district has the ability to raise 6.4 mills for next year. I was asked a question about certain things. I'm sorry, this is hard to read. I was asked last meeting to look at certain things that were going on or what we could do as far as Act 388 allows us to do. What I'm illustrating here, in hindsight, I should say, is 2020. So it's easy to look back and see what's happened. Unfortunately, I think that what's going on at the state level with the funding not keeping up with things and the fact that the General Assembly has passed Act 388, they've almost forced school districts to raise millage on an annual basis. And if you don't, this is what potentially can happen. This is, like I said, this is a very difficult read, and I apologize for that. It's a lot of information. But what happens is when you miss a year of not increasing millage, it compounds itself. For instance, back in 2012, 2013, this school district did not raise millage. They had the ability under Act 388 to raise 9.3 mills. By not doing that, you can see that that is compounded in that last column. It's compounded itself for the last 3 years, and assuming that the board were to increase millage 6.4 mills this year, we have a compounded problem of about $8.5 million. The estimated value of 1 mill is $236,926 for next year. The estimated revenue we could receive from the 6.4 mills, as I just showed you earlier in an earlier slide, is $1.5 million. We can actually go back 3 years to catch up millage that we missed from 2012 to 2013 of 9.3 mills. That would bring us an additional $2.2 million. So the board could potentially raise mills 15.7 mil, raise millage by 15 points. I can't talk. Could potentially raise 15.7 mills, which would bring us approximately $3.7 million additional. Here's what it would cost the taxpayers for a 6.4 mil increase. A vehicle assessed at $20,000, it would cost an additional $7.68. A business or personal property assessed at $100,000, it would cost an additional $38.40. Anybody owning a home would not be impacted by a millage increase due to Act 388. There's the cost of 9.3 mills. Once again, homeowners would not be affected. A $20,000 assessed value of a vehicle would cost $11.16. Of course, a business or personal property assessed at $100,000 costs additional $55.80. And then, of course, the 15.7 mills, if the board opted to do that, once again, a homeowner would not be impacted. A $20,000 automobile would cost an additional $18.84, and $100,000 of assessed business or personal property would cost an additional $94.20. So here's a recap. We got projected revenue of $162.8 million. We've got projected expenditures of $167.7 million. We got a projected shortfall of $4.9 million. That's with no millage increase. We'd have a $3.4 million shortfall with a 6.4 mil increase. A $2.7 million shortfall with a 9.3 mil increase. And of course, with 15.7 mils, we'd still have a $1.2 million shortfall. That concludes my presentation, but I'd be glad to try to answer or address any questions that you might have.
All right. I think the board has plenty of questions. Ms. Hammond, we'll start with you.
I wonder if when you talk with other districts, it seems that we've dealt with the Act 388 now for many years. I mean, it's been the law, and it's pitted, to me, it's like pits homeowners against businesses in a sense, because it's businesses that pick it up. I'm wondering how other districts, we've known this is there, how do they plan better? I mean, I know we had new schools going, and I know that costs money, but we've done a lot of things with some of our new ones. It's not new FTEs, we're putting them over to another school, but I'm trying to think, how have other districts, because the whole state has to deal with this, and I know we've lobbied about how how it's hurt us, Act 388. I mean, I hear it all the time, especially I've served on the school board for 9 different years, and it was passed while I was on the school board, so we've faced it. But I was wondering if you knew, sometimes, and I get the question from constituents, we know that's there, so how can we look at the budget and really try to cut things that will not impact the classroom? And I know you gave us some ideas tonight, and I think they're good, but I still think, I just don't see, I know Mr. White mentioned we need to make a statement and make it known that 388 hurts us, and talk to our legislators. And I know over the years we've had them in for our little coffees and things where we've sat cross to cross and talked to them. And Mr. Gant, you're president now of the association, and you know that every school district deals with it. So that was one of my questions, is how can we start to plan ahead? Sometimes I feel foolish that we haven't faced it sooner, that it was going to catch up with us with this amount. Like you said, the compound. I can understand that. Yet the public wants to know about, good stewards of the money, and how do we have this runaway spending when we know we've got this hamstring, is what I see it as.
You've got several things that have happened, I guess. Talk about other school districts first, and let me know if I forget to address everything that you just asked. Districts who were fiscally conservative prior to Act 388 have suffered as a result of that. The districts who increased millage prior to that, they get more from the property tax reimbursement than a district that was fiscally conservative. Some districts that I've seen some articles in the paper where some districts are providing, salary increases for their employees. So I've called and asked, how are you doing this? And I've got consistently from the districts I've talked to, basically they're raising class size. They're not doing it by laying people off. They're doing it by not hiring for vacancies. So they're doing it through attrition. So that's how a lot of them are handling it. My fear, and I think I've said this probably since I've been here, my fear is just like Dr. Hefner pointed out earlier, we're going to go from extraordinary to ordinary based on what's going on at the state level. Act 388 is one of the issues, but the fact that the state's not doing its part to keep up with the funding is another issue. They appropriate $2,120 for base student cost. However, they've had to cap it due to incorrect enrollment projections or student population projections. I fear that's going to happen to us again next year. A majority of the legislators don't really understand what's going on when they talk about adding $100 to the base student cost, because what they've done is they've taken funding, categorical funding from us, and now put it into a formula where it's a 70-30 split, basically. We have to pay 30%, the state pays for 70%.
But do you see that? I really don't see that changing no matter how we lobby. I think that they're looking at the whole state and where their needs, and it doesn't hold, and it does hurt districts like District 5.
Well, the way that, the focus has been on trying to, and I don't mean this to sound the way it's going to come out, because I'm not against anybody getting something to improve themselves, but what's happening is they're not increasing the funding, so it's got to come from somewhere, so typically it comes from districts like ours, and so it's redirected. That's what's happening.
Mr. Gant?